Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the school committee for December 11th, 2013. Under roll call, Linda, Dr. Leslie Quick cannot make it tonight, cannot be with us tonight, but everyone else is present. Welcome to everybody who's here. For those of you who haven't attended before, we follow down the side of the agenda so that you'll know there are a couple in the front there if people want to see them. And so we'll be going in order of the agenda. All right, and our first item is the items for approval by consensus.
Good evening, everyone. There's 4 items on the consent agenda: the approval of the minutes of November 20th regular session, approval of out-of-state field trips to Bennington, Vermont wrestling team, and London, England, the high school would like to take a trip. Warrants G405, R207, L17, 18, and 19, and payroll 1120, 13, and CBO2.
Okay, thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of November 30th, the approval of the out-of-state field trip, and I believe the warrant G4 and 5. No one, everyone can sign that? Who's there? Okay. So we'll take that as a consensus items. Mrs. Burns?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Mrs. Bonish, thank you. All those in favor? Unanimous, Linda. And then a motion to approve payroll warrant 11/20th and CBO2. Mrs. Bonish.
I make a motion to approve warrant payroll 11/20/13 and CBO2.
Thank you. And
Can I make a motion to separate the two so I can vote?
oh, CBO2, you can't?
No.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Absolutely will. Then if you don't mind, we'll separate the two. So the first one, Mrs. Bonish, will be payroll warrant.
I'll make a motion to approve the payroll warrant for 11/20/13.
Thank you. And second, Mr. Lewis. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3. 4 in favor and 2 abstain. Mrs. Kane and Mrs. Carroll. Okay, and then our last one, a motion to approve warrant CBO2. Mr. Lewis.
Make a motion to approve warrant CBO2.
And second, Mrs. Bonish. Okay, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 in favor and 1 abstain, Mrs. Burns. Okay. Thank you. You did it. Okay. Our next item of business would normally be the student representative report from the high school, but we agreed with Jessica that we were going to wait until January to start that up again because there are a lot of things for a high school student to be doing at this time of year. Okay. And our next item of business would be the superintendent's report.
I have 2 items under the superintendent's report, a personnel report, and I'm happy to announce the Wilmington Middle School has nominated Macy Doucette as our 8th grade ambassador to Project 351. Despite her challenges with juvenile arthritis, Macy's attitude and outlook are always positive. Project 351 celebrates the power of young people as a force for positive change in their communities and our Commonwealth. If you recall, Governor Patrick started this 3 years ago. It's a day of service, leadership, development, and enrichment, and Macy will represent the Wilmington Public Schools. We congratulate Macy.
That's wonderful. Okay. Yes, Mrs.
Just
Burns.
looking great. I know this is a statewide initiative. What will she be partaking at the statewide level with regards to?
It's a day of service. They will go into the State House. There are 3 different activities, usually Cradles to Crayons is one activity. They're all divided up into a service project, and they meet back at the State House, and the governor talks with them. It's the 351 is for a middle school student from every middle school, public school in Massachusetts.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I believe that Mara Gilbride will be attending as well with her.
Excellent. All right. Our next item of business is new business. And we will be looking at the FY 2015 preliminary budget presentation.
Okay, just going to shift around.
Moving.
Neil, maybe you could put some of the front lights out. There are copies of the proposal on the front seat if anybody would like it. I'm pleased to present the preliminary FY 2015 budget this evening. In Wilmington, we count it a privilege to serve our students, families, and community. It is our goal to use the most powerful and effective strategies to ensure that all students reach outstanding levels of success. We believe the most important impact on student success is the quality of the teacher, and we understand adequate funding gives educators access to the resources that they need to support students in the growing demands of public education. Wilmington is a special place filled with caring teachers, motivated students, supportive parents, and an incredibly effective administrative staff. We take pride in how our students perform in the classroom, on the playing fields, on stage, and in individual and group competitions. However, we are not satisfied with the status quo. We know that our students can do better and that we can, as a school district, do better to ensure that no students are left behind and that all our students achieve to the highest potential. We also know that we must prepare our students for one of the most challenging futures of any generation past. We must prepare them with 21st century skills and higher levels of literacy, numeracy, and critical thinking to work and live in a new world of global business and instant communication. We have begun this work in earnest. One of my primary responsibilities as superintendent is to develop a budget that supports a quality educational experience and ensures its success for all students. Preparing and planning the 2014-15 budget calls for patience and hope. Franklin Delano Roosevelt wrote, "The school is the last expenditure on which America should be willing to economize." And every year we come to the challenging time in the year when we're waiting to find out what our state Chapter 70 funding will be and how many of our grants will be fulfilled. So this is a preliminary proposal. Today's students will be citizens and leaders of the 21st century, heirs to a world that grows smaller and more interconnected every day. It is our responsibility to educate, prepare, and inspire all students to achieve to their full potential as lifelong learners, thinkers, and productive contributors to the global society. This preliminary budget was developed with the goal of preserving quality teaching and quality educational experiences for our diverse learning population, while at the same time being mindful of the current and projected challenging economic realities. While it will be a few months before we know for certain what level of state aid we will receive and what the increases in some of our major costs are, the major budget goal continues to be to continue to support 21st century learning initiatives throughout the district. We must continue to define what constitutes a 21st century education and provide teachers with the tools they need to accomplish this. Our priorities are to bring the Wilmington Public Schools into the 21st century, continue to be our focus. In addition, we will be opening a brand new high school in February, and we must be prepared to offer the students and the staff all the tools that they will need in order to teach and learn in a new environment. The major priorities will be to support all services identified essential to pre-K through 12 programs in the Wilmington Public Schools, to ensure that every student receives excellent instruction in every classroom, and to support and improve instruction through the clearly defined research-based evaluation system that Wilmington has adopted. We must ensure equitable and reliable access to necessary technology tools for students and educators, demonstrate fiscal responsibility by maintaining tight control on all non-salary line items, and strategically ask the question, what should students know and be able to do through continued implementation and alignment with the Common Core state standards. As you know, the budget risks every year is the uncertainty of Chapter 70 revenues, the continued increasing list of unfunded mandates, which I'll talk about a little later, reduction of state and federal grants, and the uncertainty of circuit breaker reimbursement. The budget that I present to you this evening will enable the school department to address the following areas. Maintain current staffing levels, which will allow the school committee to continue to support advantageous class sizes at all levels. In this budget, in order to prepare for what happened this year with the kindergarten level, we have put in an extra additional kindergarten teacher and additional staffing at the primary grades for the kindergarten classes that are going up at the Woburn Street School. Support the creation of an additional special ed classroom at the high school level that will allow our students to remain in the Wilmington Public Schools. Continue to build capacity in our OIT department to meet the ever-growing demands of expanded technology in the new high school. Create a part-time media production position in order to take advantage of our state-of-the-art media room at the new high school that WCTV will be supporting. Hiring an additional board-certified behavior analyst instead of contracting out services, so that'll actually be a swap. It's more cost-effective. We've come to the point where the central office really needs a human resource director to deal with the many state and federal mandates. It seems every couple of months something else is added to our plate. The latest is the new discipline regs and our fingerprinting that we have to institute in the next few months. We want to continue to support our staff with strong, valuable, and appropriate professional development opportunities, ensure all legal mandates are funded, which include special ed, the homeless, and English language learners, fund all contractual requirements, utilities, union contracts, transportation contracts. As you know, the teachers' contract is up at the end of this year. Continue to identify alternatives that will provide services in both cost-effective ways, building more in-house capacity to avoid some special education out-of-district costs. The addition of the program at the high school will do that, as will the BCAB. Reduce energy consumption. The new windows of the north will help with that, and find less expensive means of purchasing some products. We'd like to convert the head teachers at the Boutwell and Wildwood to early childhood directors because of the increasing demands that are being placed on them. We'd like to attract nurse substitutes to our school system by increasing the daily pay that they are given. We want to continue to fund the curriculum replacement plan that the school committee instituted 7 years ago. Our enrollment continues to go down. In total, next year there will be 34 less students in the Wilmington Public Schools. And I think it really is important to note that the enrollment has dropped 303 students in the past 7 years. And by and large, if you looked at the number of teachers that cut would be, it would be 3 times the number of teachers that we have reduced over the past 3 years. So Wilmington is very fortunate that you have continued to support low classroom size. The budget breakdown is 3 components: Chapter 70 state aid, local contributions, and other funding sources, grants. This year, we're looking for an increase of 4.3% over FY 2004, a salary increase of $1,443,803. Non-salary, we have tried to really continue to curtail costs there, and the increase is $11,321. The staff requests include an ed assistant at West, administrative assistant we would like to move from .75 to full-time, the kindergarten teacher and ed assistant for the Wildwood population if the numbers continue to go up, the half-time media teacher at the high school. We need an increase in PE at the high school. In order to support the turnover of the head teacher at Boutwell, we need a .5 SPED resource teacher. Shawshene and Woburn Street each need an additional teacher, grade 3 at Shawshene and Woburn Street, grade 1. We would like to add an additional desktop technician at the new high school who would also run our new junior spa that's going to be in our 21st Century Media Center. The next is the Pathways program at the high school. The Human Resource Coordinator. We recommending a .4 increase in foreign language at the high school. We have students that are interested in taking more classes, and we're really hoping to pilot Latin at either the freshman or sophomore year. And we need an increase of a .10 speech teacher at Boutwell based on the numbers. Non-salary changes is a reduction in SPED tuitions. Thank you, Mary Hood, and thank you to the students who've graduated out of the program. Reduction in other ed expenses, increase in technology, class advisors. We're estimating transportation contracts going to go up $21,000. We would like to adopt a elementary science program, so textbooks has increased. Office supplies for schools has increased. Maintenance repairs has gone down. We'll be removing Merrimack Fellows from the school system, which I think is a tragedy, but we had a grievance by the ed assistants saying that they were taking jobs, so we won't be continuing with the Merrimack Fellowship Program. So the total non-salary changes is $11,321. So we're looking at a total increase of $1.4 million for a total preliminary budget of $35,083,452. I mentioned at the beginning the unmandated federal and state mandates, unbudgeted, funded federal and state mandates that continues to fall upon us. And I think it's always important to remind the public and all of you, the new educator evaluation, MCAS testing, the McKinney-Vento homeless students, ELL learners, the 50 hours training now required for all teachers, documented translation services, crisis preventions training, the new student discipline law, restraint training, fingerprinting of all employees, the new PAC test, preschool requirements from early ed, SIMS, EPIMS, and SCS data reporting, the 504 plans, response to intervention, implementation of bullying prevention programs, curriculum revision as a response to Common Core. While I think that all of these mandates have much merit, unfortunately, the state, in its wisdom, does not seem to want to fund them. So it falls upon the local school districts to fund these mandates. Our capital requests this year include a replacement of one of our special ed vans and a new wheelchair van. Because it looks like PARC is going to be a reality, we're looking to purchase laptop cots in order to implement PARC. As you know, it is going to be we are piloting in the spring some paper and pencil and some electronic. From all the research that I have done, it is clear that students who take the test electronically have a head start on the test, and we need to make sure that Wilmington students have the same tools to take the test as students in more affluent communities or next door. So I want to purchase some laptop cots. It's time to replace the middle school PCs, and we'd like to purchase laptops for all of the middle school teachers, and that will be in line with the laptops that all the high school teachers will be receiving as part of the new high school budget. And lastly, replacement of PCs for the specialists. Next steps, Paul and I will be meeting with the town manager to discuss funding of the operational and capital budget requests and deciding on a number, refine the budget based on the discussions with the town, and I hope to return to the school committee on January 22nd with recommendations. I prepared this slide presentation 2 weeks ago before Nelson Mandela passed away, but there's a quote that he's talked about education as being the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world, and I truly believe that. This being my last, I can't believe I'm saying this, budget presentation, I need to tell all of you that this is a collective budget. It's a budget based on all of those incredible leaders in the front two rows. My central office, my principals, curriculum team leaders, liaisons that all work together to produce a budget, one budget for the Wilmington Public Schools. It's a budget that really, to me, exemplifies true cooperation, and that people sacrifice in some areas in order for others to get what they need. It's a group that does not fight for their department, but fights for all students. And it has been my true pleasure to be part of the process for these past 7 years. I believe that this budget will truly continue to bring Wilmington and public schools into the 21st century. We are primed to open a new school in February. At a later date, I will be presenting a school calendar, but it will be my recommendation to close high school on the Friday before February vacation and keep it closed the Monday after vacation so that teachers have an opportunity to pack up personal things from their classroom on the Friday before vacation, and on the Monday after vacation are able to get acclimated to the new high school, and then would recommend that the Tuesday that all the students come to this place and say goodbye and then move as a group by class over to the new high school. This budget includes funds for stipends for teachers and for moving expenses as well. We tried to take into account all that we think that will need to take place for the move. I have every confidence that this budget will sustain and attract a new superintendent. I was at a meeting today over at MASS, and I was telling Tom Scott that to me, this is, I've worked in 4 different districts, and this is a true gem, because it is truly the first school district that I've worked in where there is a true partnership between the town and the school. It is not a battle, it's a partnership. And I've worked with the previous town manager and the current town manager in coming up with a number that has always proved to be good for Wilmington students and staff. So with that, I close, and we'll take questions. Thank you.
I just think since we're all gathered here, and this is the last time, we can never say that we have not been truly informed as to our budget, and that we have not had the opportunity as school committee members to comment on it, to ask questions, not accusatory questions in any way, but questions that make more clear to us as to why we need these certain things and what we need to do with them. But I hope you'll join me, and I really think that Mrs. Benton deserves a standing ovation for what she's done for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I neglected one very important point. All of these drawings in this budget book are from our students. Jen Fiddler, who is the head of the art department, every month supplies the Roman House with some of our students' work, and I actually went around and took photos of it to include in the budget report. So thank you to Jen Fiddler and to the Wilmington students.
Students are always at the bottom or at the top of what we're doing. They're always there, which is a wonderful thing to see. All right, do any of the members have any questions? Mrs. Burns.
I have 2 questions. With regards to the laptop carts to prepare for park, is that the only major expense for this year? Or what else are we spending on this pilot test that we're rolling out this spring? Because we have to be, only because I've heard about headphones that...
Well, for this spring, we have enough computer labs for the number of students that we're testing.
Okay.
In all the schools. Neil's actually done a whole schedule out to make sure that we can respond to the needs. We're only testing approximately 400 students, so it makes it a little easier. The one requirement this year is that all the students that are tested are going to need headphones, which we're going to have to find in this year's budget to
Okay.
provide.
All right, so the additional expenses,
Yes.
incidentals will probably
Yes.
come out of this one? Okay.
Good point.
Oh, and the other question is, just clarifying, so I have a better picture. With regards to the request for a full-time administrative assistant for the assistant superintendent and the human resources request, will that human resource person be able to alleviate some of the pressures that the administration is currently facing? I'm just trying to, I guess, get a better perspective of I know there are new demands, and a lot of this is associated with the unfunded mandates you discussed earlier. I just kind of wanted to see if, with the human resource piece, if it can be encapsulated, not to do any disservice with regards to what needs to go out in a timely fashion as well.
I think that the increase of 0.25 for the receptionist, administrative, assistant superintendent, assistant is one that is needed because of all of the changes in professional development and record keeping that needs to happen with the state and the demands placed on the Roman House.
Okay.
People coming and going, including the art show. Anytime someone comes in, that person, the receptionist, takes the parents up and finds the paintings, et cetera. I mean, it's just a small thing, but it's an important thing.
I was just trying to.
The human resource responsibilities have really fallen upon the business office in my office, and it continues to get to, it's gotten to a place where we don't think we're doing a good enough job. A couple of examples. We don't have the capacity to do employee exit interviews the way they should be done. We don't have, well, we have no idea what it's going to be to be overseeing the whole fingerprinting program that we need to put in place. The CORI requirements, I'm the one who does that at the present time. It's very, very time consuming, especially when you have a project going on like the high school project. I have to review every single CORI that comes in. The collection of data on new staff, recruitment activities. We don't go out to school, to fairs. We just don't have the time to do it. A human resource person could do that.
Thank you very much for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Mr. Nealis.
Do we know if any other districts in the area have a human resource person?
Most of them do.
Most of them do.
I can actually bring you the next meeting. We're probably the only one in this area that does not.
Have we ever had a human resource person? Okay. Thank you.
I have a question.
Mrs. Bonish.
So the middle school PC replacement, are the laptops going to replace desktops, or are they going to have both?
No, they're replacing the teacher's desktop. And I think the teachers will be very happy. I know they will with the laptops. They want the laptops.
Do you have any other comments? On the January 22nd, would we be voting on the budget?
No, January 22nd, we will bring back to you the recommendation on the bottom line based on my conversations with Jeff Hull, and then we will need to do a budget hearing in February, and then you will vote.
So we have time between now to digest, because what
absolutely.
you just gave us tonight was new from what we already had. And I know I had gone through what we already have, but some of the questions were answered by this. So it'll give us a chance we'll go over this, and then we'll know that we don't have to vote on it on the 22nd. If we have questions, we send them to Mrs. Benton and get them answered, and we can discuss it again on the 22nd. Yeah. Do we have any other questions? I think we're all set. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next. All right. Where are we? Our next item of business is new business, proposed changes to the protocol for life-threatening allergies. And this was a subcommittee, and Mrs. Bonish was in charge of that, so between Mrs. Benton and Mrs. Bonish, I'll put...
Do you want me to start, or you want to do it?
You can start, unless you want me to.
No, I'll be glad to. The policy subcommittee met 3 times over the past 2 months to review the life-threatening allergy policies and procedures based on some recommendations, some concerns that parents had. The policy subcommittee recommended the following changes to our procedures, not to the policy, so procedures. To codify our district-wide practices and make sure that we have consistent policies across the district. Continue the policy of food-free celebrations. Make all classroom projects and manipulatives free of major allergens. Strongly encourage students to wash hands when they arrive at school as well as before and after eating. Serve lunches that are peanut and tree nut safe in grades pre-K to 5. Institute a curriculum in first grade on life-threatening allergies. Add a transition program going into grade 4 for parents and the schools to understand the students' needs. Include food bullying in the health unit for all students in grades 5. Institute an online program to educate parents. To review and refine the protocols annually. Continue to conduct staff-wide education on food allergies. Continue to train staff to be EpiPen trained, and add a transition anti-food bullying program in grade 6 as well. You know, Jeannie, if you want to ask, there are some of the parents who had come to the meeting are in the audience, I see, and I don't know if after the school committee has questions, you might want to ask if they have any comments.
Okay, did you want to add anything before I ask the questions?
No.
Okay. Does anybody on the committee have questions about this?
I just have one question that's more of a point of clarification. On the bullet, institute an online program to educate parents. Is this intended for parents of children with life-threatening allergies or parents of
who do
everyone?
not have,
Parents who do
children
not
have them
have
to
allergies.
help them understand why the
And would it be
concerns.
a requirement or would it be a strong suggestion?
Strong suggestion.
Recommendation?
Doreen Crow, who's the head nurse, would is
Put
already
together
working on it and
something.
put it on our
Okay.
website.
Okay, just a clarification.
Would anyone in the audience like to join us with in conversation?
Yes, I would.
Yes, could you just identify yourself for us, please?
My name is Jenny Cameron, and first of all, thank you so much for meeting with us over the last couple of months. We have a daughter who does have life-threatening peanut and tree nut allergies, and the proposals that you have put forward are a great step forward. We would just like to mention that 25% of incidents happen in school classrooms. So we would just like to put it out there that this is a great step forward, but there is still things that need to be done to keep our kids safe. For instance, not allowing snacks with nuts in the classroom. And there's an extensive list of things that kids can eat. And I can provide, just an 8-page list just to begin with. But, and of course, there are so many allergens out there. And I realize that some people think this is a slippery slope. But peanuts and tree nuts account for 80% of the fatal allergic reactions. 80%. So if you're eliminating the allergens that cause 80% of the deaths, you are making, and because this is an ever-increasing issue, you're going to have more and more kids, unfortunately, coming in with these allergies. And the peanuts and tree nuts are the ones that are considered lifelong. Only about 20% of kids will outgrow those particular allergens. Other allergens, more likely to outgrow. Milk and egg are another huge ones that are on the more dangerous list. So as you have those children, I think that those classrooms should be aware, and you need to, for this particular, if any child had a contact milk allergy or something like that, you would need to just discuss how you're going to handle that. But because peanuts and tree nuts, again, it causes such a very little amount of that allergen to cause a reaction, a child can touch a bit of peanut dust and touch their eyes, and it's now ingestion. Or they can pick their nose, they're children, and it's now ingestion. Or they can, touch their food, and it's now ingestion. So if they're sharing a pencil with someone who has just had, trail mix or something like that, or peanut butter is so sticky, it's just to consider that nut-free classrooms are really, really a necessary step, just to keep them out of your learning areas. And also to consider that the allergens do not go away, and not serving peanut butter and jelly and fluffernutters through 5th grade is fantastic, but there are children in 6th grade and up who still have severe allergies. And it's not a matter of knowing that you have the allergy and learning to live with the allergy. These children know it. It's a matter of kids will bully them. And it has happened this year in our school.
Could I say at this point, though, you seem to me to be going down this list, which I totally appreciate, but we are addressing the bullying. It looks like here we're addressing it on 2 levels. And so would you have anything new to add?
Just that you need to keep your kids safe past 5th grade. I mean, there's no real need to reintroduce serving nuts in the class, in the school lunch at 6th grade.
I guess I would like to say that if you, from hearing this now, I didn't hear the 3 conversations that went on during the policy meetings, the subcommittee meetings, but just hearing this at this level, I think I would ask you to give the school a chance that these all seem to have been addressed, and as we go through the year, I'm sure that Mrs. Bonish would be very open to, if you sent a little note or something that came up on any of these areas or some others that you see.
Do you want to know how my daughter was bullied?
No.
Is that what you want to know?
We can't do that. We can't do
I
that
can
at
tell
this kind of
you.
meeting. No, we cannot do that at this kind of a meeting. I'm sorry.
I mean, it has happened. It was handled very well by our school. It was handled very well, but it happens as a result of
But
kids
you know what,
eating
part
it.
of the problem in dealing with children is you never know what they're going to do, and you can't,
Exactly,
it's
which is
until
why you
they've
need to
done
eliminate the
it,
dangerous
then you can
allergen.
address it. And I think, it seems to me that what they've come up with on the policy subcommittee is an address to those items that you're nervous about. And hopefully, this will take away some of the nervousness. I had a grandchild who started out with allergies. I totally commiserate with what you're dealing with, and know that it is an issue. But we're doing the best we can. Is there anything on here that we could, are you supporting this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I absolutely support it, and I'm saying these are great steps. These are great steps forward.
Okay.
I'm just saying we need to consider also that past 5th grade precautions still need to be taken, and
And I
that
think
nut-free
they are
classrooms is the only major category that was not addressed, and it did come up with all of us
Well, it was,
within the discussion.
excuse me, it was addressed. We decided to keep things the way they are right now at the middle
So we need
school
to
and high
continue
school.
this discussion because it is very unsafe for our children. Just saying.
Good, okay, thank you. We will be happy to continue it, but we really would like to give this a chance to see how it goes. Mrs. Burns.
Can you clarify, am I understanding it right? I thought the classrooms were supposed to be peanut-free?
If there is a student with an allergy in that classroom.
Okay, okay, thank you.
And in those classrooms, let us go home to all the parents and teachers or ed assistants check all the ingredients for snacks.
Great.
To make sure that there's no nut or tree nuts in them.
Thank you.
Did we have anyone else who wanted to? Yes.
I had an incident today with my son.
Could you just state your name so we know?
My name's Chris. This is my wife, Melanie. We have a son, JT, in the 1st grade. We actually just had an incident today. His classroom is supposed to be,
It's peanut safe.
it's supposed to be peanut safe.
Okay, I have to stop you, I'm sorry. At this kind of a meeting, at our meetings, we cannot go into these details because we have a chain of command, and that has to go through your classroom teacher to the superintendent, to the
We started that
principal,
today.
et cetera.
This is a direct comment to the nut-free, nut-safe classroom, though, so I would urge you to hear them out. Their situation is a little bit unique, and I would encourage you to listen to what they have to say. Basically, kids were eating
Okay.
foods that contained nuts inside of their classroom today. And that's not a good situation for a child who
And
could
those
die.
parents didn't know not to send
No, nobody knew.
No, because lunch wasn't held in the caf, it was held in the classroom because the winter concert was in the caf today. So there were students in the classroom with peanuts. My son came home, he had rashes, he's got breaking out around his mouth. These are the exact things we were wanting to discuss, the exact reasons why we're looking for peanut-free safe, or peanut-free classrooms.
Have you discussed this with the principal yet?
Literally, we sent an email today, it literally just
Okay.
happened today,
So you'll stop with that, good. So what we need to see is if the procedure works for you, That's an issue that we could be on a level of discussion. But when you're talking about individual things happening to students, we can't get into that because you have privacy rights, the teacher has privacy rights, and so we, as a school committee board here, cannot discuss those details. And I'm sorry that's frustrating, but that's how it is. So hopefully...
We're just trying to take care of something before we have a deadly reaction in the schools. This is why it's being brought up. I mean, there have been 4 children
appreciate that.
since July that have died, 2 of which had mild allergies with only rashes in the past.
I totally appreciate that. I totally do. The trouble is, we're governed by certain laws, and it sounds maybe cold-hearted, but it's not that way. You brought it in, even before you brought it to us, we were discussing it as a school committee, because there's been changes on the state level about things. And so it came to our board, and it went to the policy subcommittee, and they spent 3 times talking about it. And so we're trying to work with you as well as we can. But I'm telling you that at public meetings like this, we cannot discuss those private incidents. And I'm really sorry, but I can't let you do it.
Right, and I have been at those meetings, obviously, and we would love to continue the conversation.
And we're so glad that we got this much done, and as all institutions,
great step, and
let's see how it goes, and definitely we can revisit it if we need to. And we'd be glad to hear from you when these things happen. Just keep a little notebook, and maybe at the end of the year, the policy subcommittee could meet one more time to review how they would meet just on this topic and review how things have gone. And then you could come up with your ideas for the next step, if there needs to be. And if there doesn't, then that would be great, too.
There does need to be before the beginning of next school year. Just saying, we'd love to have another meeting with all of us.
Okay, we really appreciate your taking the time to come, and we totally all sympathize with what happens with the kids who have allergies, but I can't let them go in this discussion. Okay. Does anyone have anything more general that they want to say? Okay. All right, thank you for coming.
My name is Glenn, I'm Jenny's husband. I just want to reiterate that I'm grateful to the school committee and the policy subcommittee, and specifically to look at these policies and make these recommendations. I think it's a considerable step forward, and I just thank you for doing that.
Great, okay, thank you. Thank you to the subcommittee. All right, that was, okay, thank you so much. We're going to vote on the policy. Yeah, okay. So I would, what happened?
It's not a policy, you don't have to vote on it.
No, it's not a, no, we're not voting on it. This is the procedure. This is not changing the policy. This is the procedure to implement our policy. So
Which will start right after February vacation, the changes in the lunchroom. Because we need to notify parents that we will no longer be selling peanut butter sandwiches in the primary grades.
Oh, okay.
And some of the curriculum health work, we've already begun. And Mary Palin, Doreen Crow, and I are working on refining all the procedures. So work has already begun.
Good.
But we want to do a big campaign for parents so they understand.
Excellent. That sounds good. Great, thank you very much. At this point, we go on to other subcommittee reports. You're all welcome to stay, but you're welcome if you're ready. We're towards the end of our agenda. We are going to be having some discussion on the superintendent search, too, so feel free to stay, but I just wanted to let you know that you don't have to. It's up to you. Do we have any other subcommittee reports?
Can I just make a brief announcement?
Yes.
I have met with Representative Ken Gordon to discuss the park pilot issue and just park in the future of our educational system, and what it looks like for Wilmington. And he has been meeting with other constituents in Burlington and Bedford who have voiced the same concerns to him, and there seems to be a consensus. After discussing it with him, he thought that it would be, and I thought it would be a great idea, to try to get a forum together at the State House early in January. We wanted to see how the next Board of Education meeting, I believe it's the 16th and 17th of this month, was going to roll out, and hopefully have a sit-down with the Commissioner Chester, along with any legislator representatives and any interested school committee principals, superintendents, that would like to just pose these questions with regards to how they might, whether it be for guidance, with how districts are supposed to prepare, not just for the test, but students, staff, and budgetary implications with this rollout and the continuing rollout. So that's still in the works, and I just wanted to let you know that he is looking at his schedule and trying to also work with getting the chairs of the Committee on Education to participate in this as well, because it's important for them to be there as well. But we're hoping that this would offer more information to districts as well as to legislators to see what districts are now facing, which I think as this rolls out will give our state legislators the idea as to how Common Core and Park is going to affect our budgetary needs as we progress with this. So that's hopefully the end result of this piece going forth. But right now we're looking at January, I think it's 6th and 7th, 13th and 14th. He's going to let me know once he's spoken to the other legislators as to if what date will work the best. But I just wanted to kind of just plant the seed now if there are any interested parties who might be interested in that they can RSVP to me, just so that we can try to get a number for it. And I'm hoping that it will take place and he is able to get this forum together at the State House level so that it's open to all districts. So.
And it would be held at the State House?
It would be held at the State House approximately about 10 o'clock in the morning. So it would be during school hours, I'm sorry, but whatever works best for these reps, I'll take, and so that's what we're hoping to roll out with. So I'll keep you abreast as I find further information from Representative Gordon, and actually I should say Representative Maselli too. He'll be working in conjunction, I believe, with Representative Gordon on this venture. So hopefully that'll be fruitful to some extent. So
excellent.
Thank you.
I had spoken to MJ about this before for the rest of the committee, so that this is kind of a different approach that we haven't had before. And whether she's representing us or herself, we're on a fine line there about, do we agree with this is the way we should go? So if you have any issues with it, talk to us about it.
Or please, or if there are any specific questions you may have with regards to the intention of this forum. It is not, I do want to say it's not a forum to vent frustration, because I know there's a lot of anxiety amongst a lot of stakeholders regarding of this piece. And I think it's because of lack of information coming out of the Department of Education. It's strictly as an informative forum to try to get those answers so that we can adequately prepare our students for this pilot testing and whatever else they formulate. There's not a lot of information coming out quite yet, so we're just trying to get a guidance and ask questions in order to prepare for the rollout of the pilot testing and then future mandates and obligations that surround it.
But when you start dealing with the politicians, sometimes you have to be careful about who's doing what and how they're doing it, so we wanted to be aware of that.
And that's how I'm trying to be sensitive to now that has come to my attention, so.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens from here. Sounds good. Thank you. Doing a lot of work. She's very, very passionate about this, thank goodness. Do we have any other reports? And do we have any correspondence? We're going to do that before we end. Okay, so now we're going to have, do we have Mr. Gilbert? Our friend Mr. Gilbert, thank you. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Mrs. Broussard, and we'll go down this way. Mrs. Broussard? I'd like to sit here wherever you want to do.
Yeah, he can join me. Mike, do you want to join me up here? Do you want to sit up here with me?
Roughly change.
That way I'm not all by myself up here. All right, thank you. At our last meeting, we unanimously agreed that we were going to move forward with the proposal presented to us by the Massachusetts Association of School Committees to help us with our search for a new superintendent. So Mr. Gilbert is here. Mike Gilbert is our field director from the MASC, and he is going to be starting us off. Oh, boy. All right. So at that point, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Gilbert.
Okay, so there's some material being passed around. I would like each of you to have one of each of these. There you go.
Thank you.
Yep. There you go. Okay.
I think that's everything. You have 3 things?
Okay, thank you.
No, no,
I'll
wait.
save one for
These are
Leslie.
the same, yes?
Yeah, so there's 3 different, right, there you go.
There we go.
So,
Wait a minute. Let me
1,
see
2,
something.
and 1 more.
Well,
Yep,
all right. There we go.
no.
Nope. I'm messing up
I have
here.
one already.
You have one of those
Yes.
already,
One of
okay.
those.
2, and,
These are the same.
yep, so there should be,
Those are all the same, and these are all the
right,
same.
so,
There we go.
Okay.
okay.
Do we have one more copy, or is that it?
Yep, we can
Yeah.
have one more.
There we go.
There we go.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, we're organized now.
So in the future, I hope to get this stuff to you ahead of time so that we don't have to spend any time going through distribution of paper. So the first thing we want to look at is the timeline. There's should be a copy of a timeline there that will sort of lay out the process, and we'll have some decisions that will have to be made by the committee, certainly between now and the middle of January. The first piece of the process really is figuring out what the qualifications are going to be, what the salary range is going to be, and how we are going to gather information from the community at large. In terms of gathering that information from the community, what we generally do is we have a survey, an electronic survey that we will create, would provide a link to you that would go up on your district website. That also can be emailed if you have email lists that you utilize. That can be emailed to community members and staff as well. And you make that available to the community and staff for a period of time. Generally, what I do with that is we will get that up as quickly as possible. I brought a copy with me tonight of what we have essentially put together for most school districts. We can look at that and talk about whether we need to make any changes to that. But we can get that up as quickly as possible. And in fact, if we don't make any changes, we can get the link to someone in the IT department tomorrow to get up on your website. The other way in which we gather information from the community is through focus groups. I would come in and meet with staff, administrators, community members, parent groups, over a couple of week period in January. Generally, we do this with staff immediately after school in each of the buildings. We would generally provide 2 evenings for parents and community members to come, and any other groups that you would like us to schedule time with. So we can talk about whether or not there are other groups other than that we would need to go out and meet with. Oftentimes, I will go and meet with town manager, board of selectmen, to gather information from the municipal side as well, and senior centers. If there's a place where senior citizens gather, I will go and spend some time and listen to their input as well. And what we would try to do is work with your central office to schedule those things over the first couple of weeks in January. We need that information to sort of build a candidate profile, essentially a set of selection criteria that will be used throughout the process. The first place where we will use that is in a marketing brochure that would go out to school districts around the state, superintendents and assistant superintendents, to school board and administrator associations around the country, to select colleges of schools of education at colleges and universities that do work with administrators on educational leadership. We have a key list of places that we work with, not just in New England, but around the country. We put that ad, that marketing brochure also up on our website, and the most often hit page on our website is our superintendent search page. So that's one of the recruiting tools that we utilize. So we would want to get all of that information gathered, come back to you at the end of January with a report that sort of sets out what those what that candidate profile looks like, what the selection criteria would look like. My recommendation is that we would advertise in Education Week, the week of February 5th, and we need to get the material into Education Week by the 24th of January in order to get that ad in. What I've brought with me tonight is sort of a layout of the copy of an ad. So the things that you need to make decisions about before the 24th of January are those things that show up here in qualifications. Generally, the licensed or eligible for licensure as a superintendent in Massachusetts is pretty standard. The decision you would need to make here is master's degree, or are we going to look for more? I would say that in general, when you are looking for more than a master's degree, you are narrowing your pool considerably. Okay, there are not a lot of superintendents out there, believe it or not, who already have their PhDs. Many of them get them while they're doing their superintendent work and acquire them in their first few years as a superintendent. But most people applying for a superintendency right now will not have their PhD. Yes.
Well, would that be, but anybody with more than that, is that something we could accommodate for per se?
Absolutely, sure.
Okay, all right. I just didn't.
Yeah, these are the minimums.
Okay.
So, and then how do you want to deal with the years of experience in terms of, what experiences do you want that person to have, and how much experience in education? And our general recommendation is 10 years in education, and then we split it depending upon what the district's priorities are. The salary range, what I would do with you is I would send you some information based on current data that we have, based on similar communities to Wilmington, based on districts' communities' ability to pay, and the size of the district. And we'll look at what salaries are in those other communities, what the statewide averages are, and come up with a recommended range that I would then bring to you. So again, none of these decisions have to be made tonight, but they do have to be made before we can put the ad in. The rest of the ad information is really based on the timeline itself. So once we get past the advertising piece, we generally leave 4 to 6 weeks after the ad hits in Education Week for people to gather their to get their application in, gather the information that is needed to go with the application, their transcripts, their personal statements, their references, all of those things. Superintendents are like kindergartners. They always wait till the last minute, but we do give them time to gather that information. So if you call me 2 weeks after the ad and say, how many applications do we have? I'll probably tell you 2. But we'll end up with 30 to 40 applications, at least. This is I would say this is a plum assignment, but this is certainly a well-recognized, well-functioning school district, and that will be. I've already heard from people saying, "Yeah, I'm going to apply for that position because I like the community." So that's always a help. So on the timeline, we've set the deadline for submitting applications to our office as March 7th. Generally, at that point, we take the selection criteria that you have approved, and we do a paper screening in our office. We generally have a retired superintendent and a professor from a school of higher ed in the Boston area. We have a number of them that we work with. We bring them in, the field director, in this case myself, and those 2 people take your selection criteria, and we essentially rate all of the paper applications that we've received. And we narrow that down generally to 8 to 10. When we get down to that, number 9, 10, so on, if they're close, we might decide to bring you 12. But generally, it's 8 to 10. We think that really then is a manageable number that can work with a search committee in your community. The search committee would then need to come together in early March. We would go through a training process with the search committee. They would work with me to develop questions, and we have a standards bank of questions that we use. The questions are designed to get at the criteria. So whatever the selection criteria are that you've approved, we would formulate the questions initially around those selection criteria. Try to keep the group of search committee group focused on asking questions of candidates that get at that selection criteria. Once that search committee has conducted those interviews, they will narrow down the number of candidates to 3 to 5. Those 3 to 5 candidates then become finalists. Their names become public, and the rest of the process from there is public. So the search committee meets with candidates in executive session. Those candidates are not known to anybody other than the search committee and myself until we get to the finalist stage. So that would occur generally around the 20th of March. I would then meet with the school committee, with the chair of the search committee to present the finalists to the school committee. We would review with the school committee at that point site visit information. We would then send you out to, in the next week, that week after that, we would send you out to visit the places where these people are working, to gather more information and do your due diligence on the candidates themselves. We would then meet again the week following that. I would meet with you, because not every member of the school committee is going to be able to go on every site visit, especially if we end up with 5 finalists. So we would have a public meeting to discuss what the findings were on each of the candidates. So the part of this is you be preparing to talk about each of the candidates that you went to visit. The week of April 14th, candidates will come to Wilmington. Those finalists will come to Wilmington. They would spend the day in the district. Would start in the morning and meeting with administrators. Generally, they would go to every school if we have time, at least go to every level in the district. There would be maybe an hour or so downtime after school lets out. They would then have a public sort of meet and greet with with community members for an hour and a half, and then have their interview with the school committee in public that evening. And generally, by the time that you finish that interview, that's generally about another 90 minutes. So they will have had a significantly lengthy day in the district. One of the things you're doing that for is to look to make sure that the person who's coming here has the energy to do the job. The superintendent's job has long days almost all the time. So if they can't hold that energy through a visit and an interview process, they're probably not the person that you want for the job. At the end of the last interview, the school committee would then deliberate and make its selection of who they wanted to be the next superintendent of schools, and then they would enter into contract negotiations with that person. That vote would generally take place around, based on this schedule, the 17th of April. And that person would then hopefully be able to start in July. One of the things that we do in public education that I've always found sort of interesting is we hand the person the keys to the building on July 1st. The only people who are here are the administrators who work full-time and the custodial staff. They don't meet teachers, they don't meet students. So one of the things we do encourage is once we've gotten through the selection process and they've been selected, that they try to spend some time in the district in late April and early May and into June, so that they do get at least to be familiar with some of the staff and students, and the staff and students do get to be a little more familiar with them before they actually take over the reins in July. So, questions or comments with regards to the timeline?
Quick question, you put on here, school committee must determine whether or not any special consideration will be given to local applicants.
Yep.
Local applicants being from the district?
Yes.
Correct,
Not somebody who lives here who
I just want
works somewhere else. But yeah, that really is internal candidates.
And what kind of special consideration would you be talking about?
If there are internal candidates who are interested, I think we sort of need to deal with that up front. I would essentially post the position as quickly as possible so that you know that anybody who is interested would come forward. What I would recommend is that once we have the selection criteria defined, but before we advertise, if there are internal candidates, we bring those internal candidates in front of the school committee in public, we interview them, you make a decision whether or not you're going to hire that person or not. If you hire the internal candidate, we tear up our contract. Okay? If you don't, then we move on, and we don't have to worry about whether there is angst amongst candidates from other places who are worried about being up against an internal candidate. And I think that strengthens your pool of external candidates. Because the first question I get asked when a candidate calls me and asks about the district, first question I get asked is there an internal candidate? And certainly where there are central office administrators, especially assistant superintendents, business managers, they have their own networks, and and they know each other well. And so if there is an assistant superintendent who's indicated that they have an interest in the position, other assistant superintendents may well sort of back off. So that's generally the way in which we try to handle internal candidates. That's your decision. If you decide that you're going to treat everybody the same, that's fine too. We just put everybody in the pool and we move forward.
Okay.
Yep.
Can I ask a question about the ad?
Yes.
So it says licensed or eligible for licensure.
Yep.
So what exactly does that mean? Wouldn't we want them to be licensed as a superintendent?
Yes. But, for example, you may have a superintendent in New Hampshire who's not licensed in
So it's the state,
Massachusetts.
okay.
but he's eligible for a license in Massachusetts. You may have somebody who has applied for the license, has all of the requisite information, and has done all of the work, but the license has yet to be issued.
Okay.
If they've applied, they give us the application information, and we check with the department to see whether or not all of that information is there, and we'll bring that person forward. Generally in Massachusetts, somebody coming from another state would not generally have a license in Massachusetts. If they're licensed as a superintendent in another state, they would be given an initial license. They would be required within the first year of that license existence to pass the teacher test. And if they were already a sitting superintendent, they still have to do that. They would then be issued, once they pass the test, they would then be issued a permanent license.
Thanks.
Can I ask you, how long does that all transpire between testing and, I mean, I know they have up to a year, but I mean.
Well, the test is only given twice a year, I believe.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
so that's why they have that timeframe.
I see.
And obviously, you put language into the superintendent's contract that states that they're required to maintain their license. Okay. Other questions or comments on the timeline? Does this run into any problems in terms of dates with elections?
Good question I was going to ask.
That's a
I don't
good
think it's
question.
until the end of April,
Okay.
if I'm.
Yeah, it's usually.
Yeah, usually they're late April, early May, so I'm usually pretty.
Town meeting first Saturday of May, so it would probably be barring any unexpected elections. I mean, I would expect it to be the last Saturday in April, or, the week
Okay.
before
The week
the
before.
town meeting
Okay.
kind of
So
thing.
you'll be done before, and I also want to try to make sure that this got done before April school vacation, so.
I was going to raise that
We can
question.
find those dates
Yeah.
and get them to you.
Yeah.
I did look at your website today to make sure that I wasn't running into school vacation
School
issues
vacation,
and those types of things, so I did take care of that. The question I had was whether the election was in the
Will
middle
town
of March or
clerk have
April.
that information at this point?
Should.
Yeah, they should. It's routine. It's usually the same week. It might be a different date, but it's usually the
can
fourth
get
that.
Tuesday in April or something along those lines. Okay. All right, so I would need, again, before we place the ad, I would need to make sure that the timeline was approved. Okay? You need to look at those qualifications and let me know that you approve those. I will send you additional information electronically with regards to a recommended salary range that, again, I would need before we place the ad. We take a look at the survey.
Quick question on
Yep.
the timeline approval, does that have to be done in public,
Yeah.
public meeting?
Yep.
And my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that, so we need to make sure that we know all of what we're looking for, our qualifications, but part of that decision would be based on the focus groups and the results of the survey.
Right, the qualifications
So we need to get
that
that done.
the qualifications that are in the ad.
Yes.
In terms of degree level, years of experience, and if there's a particular area of expertise that you're going to require. For
Okay.
example, you're going through a building project.
Yeah.
So if this person needs construction, needs to have had construction experience, we want to put that in the ad.
Okay, but the
Okay, but
focus groups and survey results can be
that can be done.
independent
That's
of
going into
that.
the marketing brochure, so
Okay,
that will be.
okay.
Can I ask you your
Yep.
perspective, whether you want to respond to it hypothetically? With the technology piece, ever changing, ever growing, and the demand ever coming in, would that, do you think, I mean, don't have to say black and white, but do you think that might be also another perspective to consider with regards to some sort of technology? I don't know. I mean, I don't want to assume that could probably be done in the interview process, so I'm not sure what.
Right, and I think that also will come up in the survey results as part of the selection criteria. But I don't generally these days see it as something that goes in the qualifications in the ad.
Okay.
10 years ago, we did, because we were just really beginning, and there were a lot of people out there who didn't have any. Today, most educators have some experience with technology, so. Okay, can we take a look at the survey? Is there anything that strikes you as missing or not needed? Generally, the way the survey works is, we put this up. We ask for parents, employees, residents, and students to fill this out. There are essentially three questions. One is to provide significant current or future issues that the superintendent will need to address. We give about 15 to 20 areas there, and we ask you to select the 5 most significant areas. And we give you an option to add others that are not on the list anyway. And these are, the ones that are listed here are generally things that, these are issues that most school districts have at some point or another. Ultimately, it comes down to what's the priority for this community and this district. And then there is a sort of open-ended question as to what you believe is the most important issue facing the next superintendent. And then we have another, top 5 skills and abilities that superintendents need to have. And again, there's a list of about 20 here that are sort of part of a standard job description for a superintendent. But again, it becomes a matter of what is the priority for this school committee in this district and this community. And from that, we will glean probably between 5 and 10 priority areas that will come back to the school committee and say, these are the things we're going to use to rate the candidates as we go through the process. So that by the time that the 3 to 5 finalists are in front of the school committee, we know pretty much that, at least on paper, they've said on paper that they can meet the selection criteria. They've showed us through the interview process that they can talk about it. School committee's job then becomes, do they walk that talk when they go do the site visits? And what's the fit? What's the fit from a personality perspective between these 3 to 5 candidates who meet the selection criteria and the school committee and the community? And that's really the ultimate key. And one of the things that will happen as we go through this process is there will be a point where we lose a candidate. It happens, okay? We don't need to worry about that, because the one thing we have is we have the selection criteria, we know what we're looking for. What we need is one candidate who meets the selection criteria and is a fit for this community. If we don't get it, go back out and start over again. So don't be afraid to say, no, I'm not happy. We didn't get the candidates we wanted. We'll go out and do it again if we have to. Okay. Generally, you're usually pretty good about coming up with at least one candidate that you'll be happy with, but it does happen every once in a while. I think twice in 18 years, I've had to go back out and do it again. So is there anything on the survey that jumps out at you that either we should take off or something we should add?
I think it's just a house cleaning thing, where is it successful regional school administrative? Is that something that?
Yes, yep, and we can change that.
Yeah.
Is that on?
Do we have to, it's on the second page.
Second page, yep.
Do we have to vote on this piece, or can we
No,
kind of think about it?
But
and
what
then-
I'm going to do is if you can get back to me by Friday with anything that you want to change.
Would it be just for organizational purposes, so you don't have 12 different emails coming out?
Yeah,
Would
get it to
be the
Julie, and
contact?
Julie
Okay.
can, yeah.
My only thing is, even if I make a suggestion, it might not be fruitful at this stage,
Right.
per se, and might be something better set up for the interview process, for instance. And I
Right.
mean, this is kind of a whole new thing,
It is
and
for all of
there's
us,
I have a whole, wish list, you know what I mean, to kind of, but I'm not sure how it interface with the steps.
Well, I think if there are things that, if there are areas
I mean, I
that,
could purge, and then you guys can,
yeah, if there are areas that you think are missing, I think that's what's most important. If there's something that you think we missed, an area that isn't covered, then let me know. Otherwise, your specific questions, you want to hold for the process.
Right. All right, then that might be where you might need to edit me.
I will.
Okay. I have no doubt that you will, Michael. You're getting pretty good at it, so.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I will get in touch with central office next week and start to work to schedule focus groups in the community, and we'll try to get that information out. The other topic I wanted to just touch on tonight, too, is how we select and put together the search committee. Generally, I like to keep them around 11 to 13 people. How many schools are there? 7 schools? Okay, so we're not gonna do it that way. Thank you.
8 schools, yeah.
8 schools, okay. So I will go to all 8 schools to do focus groups, but in terms of putting people on the search committee, a teacher from each level. I'll give you a sort of draft letter that you can send to the teachers' union and let the teachers self-select. A parent from each level. I'll work with you to get the parent groups, and again, the parents self-select. An administrator from central office and an administrator from the building level. So all of the principals would get together and decide, okay, which one of us is going to represent the principals on the search committee. Same thing with the central office. Central office staff will get together and they'll have one representative. Support staff generally would have one representative. You may choose to have a high school student if you so wish. And again, that would be self-selecting. The only one that's not self-selecting is the community member at large. So if you want to have a or a couple of community members at large, generally what I would say is I would help you write a press release to get out to the local paper, have people send letters of interest. You put those names of those people in a hat. At a school committee meeting, you have somebody in the audience pull 1 or 2 or however many names out of a hat. That way, nobody can say that the school committee tried to rig the process at the search committee level. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Great.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for
Thank you.
joining us
All right.
tonight.
And I'll be in touch with you, too.
Excellent. Okay, so just filter through me and comments about the survey for the next step. I think at this point, I get to turn the meeting back over to Chairperson Kane.
Thank you. It was really gratifying to see how many of the staff, the teaching staff, stayed through that conversation, so thank goodness. That was very good of them. Okay, we have no correspondence. Our future meeting dates are January 8th. I believe there will be an executive session on January 8th, but we'll let you know, which means that it would start probably at 6:30. And January 22nd, there are no specific things yet.
I will be in Arizona on January 22nd.
Is it warm there at that point?
I hope so. I will.
Good for you. That's great. Okay, well, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. This is Carol.
So move.
Second? This is Burns. All in favor? Thank you. He's like, unanimous. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right.